When it comes to retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you found the Retire Your Way podcast with Dave Lopez, founder and managing member of ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement plan at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hat and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now. Coming to you from the ILG Financial Studios, this is Retire Your Way, the podcast that gives you the straight talk and honest answers that you need to help you achieve your financial goals through smart investing and careful planning. My name's Jeff Shade, and as always, I'm just here to ask the questions, but the words of wisdom and solid advice come from Dave Lopez, managing member and owner of ILG Financial. How you doing these days, Dave?
Doing well, staying isolated as prescribed by our federal government, but sure look forward to these chances to talk with you and our guests. We've got a great show planned for today.
Yeah, indeed. Always fun for me, too. I always learn a lot about this. And, you know, Dave, as the world and some areas of the U.S. have begun to reopen their economies, we can look forward to a time when the entire economy is up and running again. But in the meantime, the government has passed some legislation to help small and medium-sized businesses and hospitals, as well as temporary tax relief measures to help businesses and individuals, which we're going to discuss today, Dave.
Yeah, we sure are. But one of the takeaways I want folks to be listening for today, Jeff, as we go through this, is that it is so important to note that this economic downturn can affect those nearing or in retirement differently and worse than most others. That's why it's important to have a solid plan, have it in place, and have a plan in place that you're comfortable can weather any financial storm, specifically one like we're going through. So if you've lost your job, if you've been furloughed, or you're the business owner of a small business and you have suffered a major shutdown, you might need to rethink or update your current plan based on this, once-in-a-lifetime economic event.
That's right, Dave. And if you've lost your job and you think you might be facing an early retirement, you might be rethinking your Social Security claiming strategy, among other things. If you think you need to claim earlier than you originally planned, keep in mind that you've got 1 year after claiming to suspend benefits. That means there is a do-over there for you. If you find another job in the next year, you can repay your benefits and go back to deferral. This way, you can still receive a larger monthly benefit by delaying your Social Security benefits. There's so many ways to claim Social Security, and a qualified financial advisor can help you decide and update your strategy. And I think there's something like 560 ways to claim Social Security, and I know that is one of the things that you help people with there at ILG Financial. So if you're looking to update your Social Security claiming strategy, or you want to take advantage of this tax relief legislation, or revise your overall retirement plan, ILG Financial can help you with that, whether you're in or nearing retirement. Give Dave a call there at 540-720-5656, or visit the website online there at ilgfinancial.com to sign up for a complimentary financial review so you can get started on a plan to suit you and your unique financial planning needs. Well, Dave, a lot going on here in the economy and the world insofar as this legislation goes, and I understand that there have been several bills passed, among them this new coronavirus relief legislation. There was a first round of funding for the payroll protection program. Now there is a second round of funding. So let's talk a little bit about the bill providing help for the small businesses through the Paycheck Protection Program.
Well, this latest bill was signed by President Trump. It's valued at about $484 billion, and it's targeted to help employers, but also hospitals under stress from the pandemic. So let's kind of get right into kind of what it talks about. This one, by the way, was signed April 24th, so it's the second one. It provides about $250 billion to replenish and help fund small and medium-sized businesses. That's through the payroll protection plan, also can help with rents and other expenses. It also is going to provide favorable loans to businesses so they can continue paying workers. Finally, one of the quick things that jumps out is that when the plan was launched, The original amount of funding quickly ran out of money in about 2.5 weeks after approving only $1.7 million in loans that actually got 2 people. So that's kind of where we are now, but it includes a lot more than that, Jeff. It has $100 billion set aside for hospitals and a nationwide testing program that we're still waiting to get up and running. It has $60 billion set aside for small banks, so we have an alternative network for small businesses to go through as opposed to just having to go to the big boys. And it also has about $60 billion for small business loans and grants delivered through the SBA, Small Business Association.
And Dave, this second round of funding, I understand that it is all but depleted right now as well, and still there are a lot of businesses who have not received their funds. Do you think, or in your opinion, that there will be even more stimulus money coming for businesses because there's so many businesses that didn't get it?
Yeah, and of course, this is my personal opinion, but if you look at the data, once the government says we're going to help, it's almost like you've turned on the tap. You can't turn the tap on with a line of people with their 1-gallon jugs for glasses of water, fill up 4 of the jugs, and then turn the water off. It's a drop in the bucket with the economic damage that's happened because of this shutdown. And again, remember, they're just printing money. It's not like they have to go mine for gold. So I don't think they're going to have any choice but to continue. And not just until everyone gets their first round of benefits. Remember, the benefits in that payroll protection plan, Jeff, were designed to cover 8 weeks of payroll for folks that were being shut down. Well, still trying to get that money to these employers, the 8 weeks is over. So even folks that hypothetically got it right when this thing started, that money is now gone. They're probably going to be back in line for another 8 weeks because we're still closed. So we've got some significant economic challenges ahead of us, and it's causing a rising tide of information that's going to cause quite a while for us to recover from.
That's right, and the stimulus checks that people got either by mail or directly deposited to them, $1,200 for an individual, $2,400 for a couple, $500 for each child under the age of 16. $1,200 is going to help, but it's not going to solve the problem. I mean, for a lot of people, $1,200 will get you through a week or 2 weeks, but then what happens after that?
Well, right. For a lot of folks, that $1,200, when they finally got it, it was usually late April for most folks.
Right.
They use that to back pay their April rent. So the money's gone. It wasn't used for food for in most cases, or if it was, they haven't paid their rent yet. So unless we get another stimulus check, how are we going to pay for May rents? And that's going to cause a huge issue, because here's the numbers that are stark and that have to be addressed. We can't just pretend these aren't out there. Jeff, this is an article dated April 30th in the Washington Post. Is 30 million Americans sought jobless benefits last week, extending the pandemic's grip on the national workforce. Now, what that means is we are now officially in roughly 6 weeks of this virus. More than 30 million, understand that number, 30 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits. And many, if not most, haven't gotten their checks yet. I know that we've got relatives in Florida that are in the food service industry, and everyone they know is out of work, Jeff. And the ones that were lucky enough to get their applications in the first week or so have just gotten their first check, but most folks still can't even apply. So when you hear that we're at 30 million applied for unemployment, what we have to be aware of is there is an onslaught of Americans out of work who still, because the system is so overwhelmed, haven't even applied yet. And they're still out of work and not earning any money. And that's causing huge problems that you will start to see crop up in the future here in the form of companies going under, companies defaulting on debts, probably will cause the stock market in that case to kind of go down, and unemployment will cause Medicaid to go up. Which is going to be more and more and more stimulus necessary just to keep this dam from breaking.
That's right. My heart goes out to those people who are unemployed and can't get the unemployment benefits. I mean, what do you do? Unemployment here around the first of the year or so was at historical lows. I mean, it was like 2%, something like that. And the numbers that we're really looking at right now are pointing to more like 20% or more than even that, because the numbers aren't even correct. So many people are not counted for one reason or another. So definitely we're in unprecedented waters here. And we want to continue to talk about that, Dave, and how this affects you if you're a retiree or you're going to retire in 5 years or 10 years, or, if you're in the market, out of the market. But first, I want to talk a little bit about, the fact that the whole world, Dave, seems to have stopped. I mean, everybody is at home. Most everything has been closed. We don't have any other options but to adapt to our new normal. But as life we knew it might be on pause, you know what, Dave? Our money is still very active, and every day it's moving up, it's moving down a little more, and down so fast it can take your breath away. And if you're retired or planning to retire, those market drops take more than just your breath away. They take the plans you had for the future and the income you needed to make them happen with them. So are you going to allow market volatility to change the course of your retirement, or are you going to do something about it? Well, you do have a choice to make, because right now you can do something about this. You can protect yourself from future market losses while still participating in the upside, and you can create a secure lifetime income stream you can never outlive. Well, to learn how you can do that, you can contact Dave there at ILG Financial through the little red footer on our website, ilgfinancial.com. Somebody will get right back to you within 24 hours. And of course, you can always call the office to make your appointment, talk to Dave or one of the staff there, 540-720-5656, 540-720-5656. That's the number for ilgfinancial.com. And again, no cost, no obligation for this complimentary consultation with Dave and the crew there at ILG Financial. So, Dave, let's continue to talk about this new coronavirus relief legislation. Now, you deal with not only individuals here at ILG, but do you also work with businesses?
I sure do. Mainly we do through the small business owners, right? So folks that have small businesses, and what we're hearing a lot of is, money we had set aside for retirement. I'm having to pull that money out of my accounts just to kind of keep the shop running. Otherwise, we kind of go under. And remember, the challenge with small businesses is these folks don't have a pension. It's not a matter of just working 5 or 6 more years and then the pension kicks in. For most of them, their business is their retirement plan. So they're hoping to either be able to continue to run it, even by pulling away a little bit in retirement, or the plan is to be able to sell it and get enough money to turn that into an income stream for the rest of their lives. Well, this type of an unprecedented black swan event is going to unfortunately wipe out a great many small businesses. They will not be coming back from this because they don't have the funds that a large firm has access to weather this type of a storm. I mean, according to Reuters, when they were talking about types of recoveries that we've seen historically, they predict that the global economy is going to suffer the steepest economic contraction on record. Now get that, the steepest on record. So the idea that we're going to somehow bounce back from this and it's not going to look like '08 looked or 2001 or the Great Depression, any of these major corrections just doesn't jibe with what's happening. And we're really stressing to folks, be aware of the numbers or get with us and let's talk about what's actually happening, because this may be a once-in-a-lifetime thing that's happening and you don't want to say it was just bad luck that it happened between 5 and 10 years of your retirement or right as you did retirement. There's things we can do to put you in a much better position to weather what could be a major economic downturn that could last several years.
How do you help people who are right there at the cusp of retirement or in retirement navigate these financial and these market storms?
Well, the key is really no different than what we've done when things are good, which is let's walk through and in a systematic way, let's build out a plan for how to invest your money based on how you need to use the money. Now, whether we're in the middle of this economic tsunami that we're going through, or if things, just 6 months ago, you felt like the stock market and your life was just rolling along, going up, up, up. None of those changes the fact that the data is very specific. When we talk about investing in the stock market that goes up and down over time, buy and hold in the market, which we've all heard about, Jeff, right? Buy and hold is a very effective strategy if you're willing to buy and hold. And what we mean by that is you got to be willing to leave it in there for the long term to recover from a major economic downturn like the one we're going over. And let me give you a few examples of that, because I think the narrative that you hear on the radio misleads people just because the verbiage or the syntax is different. For example, a lot of times we talk about different types of recoveries, and there's really 3 or 4 out there. One is called the V shape, V as in Victor, shaped recovery. You've heard of that one, haven't you, Jeff?
Absolutely. This happened around, according to the chart I'm looking at, it looks like a V here on this chart. That was around 2008 and 9.
Yeah, so a V-shaped recovery is when the market drops very suddenly or the economy retracts. They're usually, when they talk about this type of a recovery, they're not talking about the stock market, and that's a very key distinction everybody wants to be making. What they're talking about is gross domestic product, the expansion or the contraction of the productivity of our nation. So when they say a V-shaped contraction, what they mean is in 1 or maybe 2 quarters, that's 3 months or 6 months, the economy contracts, goes back. That usually leads to a market correction, right? But people lose their jobs and businesses slow down and no one's buying anything. And a V-shaped recovery means it very quickly turns around and things open up, and within another 3 to 6 months, 1 to 2 quarters, the economic production of the United States, the gross national product, is really back up where it was. So in that case, sometimes within a year, the machine that we call the U.S. economy is running full cycle again and going well. Here's what a U-shaped recovery, as you might guess, just means it takes a little longer to turn the boat around. So instead of it being a year till we're fully back up to speed and running at full speed, we might be a little longer turning the boat. So now it might take 1.5 years to 2 years. And then there's others that are more severe. But when this started, most of the economists that were out there were talking about a very quick V-shaped recovery. Already, if you start to read the dialogue, they're saying that's just about impossible now because of where we are. Now they're talking about this slower U-shaped recovery. Now, here's the key point that I want to make. If you look at a U-shaped recovery, what they talk about is, again, 1 or 2 quarters of down, and then you might spend 1 or 2 quarters turning the boat where you're still down. So that's about 4 quarters of underperformance of our economy and contraction, and then it starts to turn and maybe, 2 or 3 quarters up. Well, if that's what's happening with the economy, Jeff, what does that actually mean for the market? And I'll give you a perfect example of that. When the stock market crashed in 29, it's a great example of that. You saw a contraction that, roughly lasted about 18 months, right? From 29 to 1930, and about mid-1930 or 31, things started to turn around. So when they talk about a recovery, what they're saying is by 31, things were already starting to head back up, just a mere, 18 months. But the stock market, because it dropped during that contraction, it took about 25 years if you did a buy and hold to get back even. So do you see where I'm going with this? Don't be thinking that, hey, in this situation, which many economists are saying might be the worst economic event we've had to deal with since the Great Depression, if I do a buy and hold and I'm going to retire in 2 years or 5 years, or if I'm in retirement, if I just hang tight for 24 months, I'll probably be okay. That's possible, but that's not what happened in the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, a buy and hold, you would have had to sit tight for 25 years. In 2000, Jeff, right, we had a correction, a V-shaped correction basically with the dot-com bubble burst, but still you would have had to buy and hold for 8 years to get even. It would have taken you to right till about 2008 to get even. And then as you pointed out, we turned around and immediately crashed again with the real estate bubble. And then it took 5 years of buy and hold to get even. So all told, that was really not 2 V-shaped recoveries, was it? It was a big, what we call a W-shaped recovery, right? Down, up, down, back up. So the point is, the buy and hold, just to get even, you would have had to buy and hold for 13 years from 2000 to 2013. That's what I meant when we started this segment, Jeff, when I said how this downturn is going to affect folks is going to be very different for someone in retirement who's using their money to live off of than it is for somebody who's 30 years old and is planning to work for 25 more years and is just going to let it set.
Good points there, Dave. You talked about that boat turning around, and I think about the little Chris Craft skiff or something like that. You can turn those around pretty quickly, but it seems like this U-shaped recovery that we're in right now, if we want to make the boat analogy, we're probably more, a giant tanker or something like that, one of those big cargo ships that takes about a mile or so in order to change directions. Definitely, I don't think this is a V-shaped recovery, not even a check mark at all. This is more of a U, and I think the bottom of that U is a little flatter than a lot of people think it is. I was just looking at something here online that says the coronavirus pandemic likely to last 2 years, according to Anthony Fauci, who's almost certain that the virus will return in winter. But he is optimistic about a vaccine, that coming in 12 to 18 months. So,
Everything is not lost. I guess the big question, Dave, is this that everybody's thinking about who might be listening to this podcast. And if they're listening to this podcast, they're probably near or in retirement. If I'm in retirement, near retirement, and my retirement funds have been somewhat depleted, what do I do? Do I stay the course? Do I change course of action? What's the answer to that?
Yeah, I wish I had one answer that we could give on the radio. The answer really, though, Jeff, is it's different for everyone. It depends on your specific situation. But we've got a rare opportunity here because the market tanked about 35 or 36% initially in March, and then it recovered. And many believe, I'm one of them, but many believe that this is a temporary recovery and it's going to turn down once the real numbers come to light. But what it does is it gives us all a rare do-over opportunity. Really, most folks who did a buy and hold at this point are only down about 10 to 15% from their all-time high in February 17th. Now think about that. If you had a chance, knowing what you knew about the Great Depression or even the 2008 correction, Jeff, knowing what you knew in advance, if you could have gotten out within 10 or even 15% of the 11-year all-time top and lock in your gains, would you have? Well, the answer is different for everyone, isn't it, right? But I would argue if you are, and you've got to make a bet here, if you think things are going to possibly turn because of this U-shaped recovery and go back down, and it might take 7, 8 years like in 2000, or another 5 years, or 13 like 2000 to 2013 to recover, and you can't afford to leave your money that long, then we might want to take advantage of moving some of your chips off the table to safety and look at some different principal protected investments we can put that in, especially to guarantee the income you need over the next 13 years. Now, if we can lock that down, then the money that we can agree on that you don't need for 13 to 15 years, maybe that we let sit in the market and take advantage of an eventual recovery, which I do expect eventually.
I do too, Dave. And you can't outguess the market, but you can create an adaptable plan, as you said, to accomplish your retirement goals. Prosperous retirement. It's not an easy feat, and certainly one that can be made more manageable with a plan and a coach to help you along the way. If you'd like an advisor who can help educate you on the implications of what's going on in the world around you and act as a coach to prepare you for what could come, call Dave there at ILG Financial for a complimentary financial review. He can assess what you currently have and how that'll help you reach your retirement goals. So call Dave at 540-720-5656, 540-720-5656. No cost, no obligation for that plan whatsoever. Just a friendly conversation between you and Dave and the advisors there to figure out a plan to get you on the road to where you need to be. You can find out more about the firm online as well, too, at ilgfinancial.com. Income, liquidity, growth, ILG Financial. Dave, time has run out for this particular podcast. I want to thank you for your time, but especially want to thank the listeners for joining us. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again next time with another edition of Retire Your Way with Dave Lopez. Have a great day.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and not necessarily represent the views of AlphaStar Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through AlphaStar Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. AlphaStar and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities.